I'm Jim Moran, Vice President for Programs and Outreach here at the American Antiquarian Society. I'm here with Vincent Golden, our curator of newspapers and periodicals, and we're discussing the characteristics of colonial newspapers. Vince, how did the format of newspapers change over the course of the 18th century, say from 1700 to 1800?
Well, the format actually didn't change that much because the technology didn't change that much. So it's really the same type of presses, a wood press where they're pulling on a bar that turns a screw. And so the physics of like the pressure, the whole mechanics of printing a paper really didn't change. So the size of the paper really didn't change much. The way the ink didn't change, the content, the way. So really a paper from the 1720s looked fairly similar to the one from the 1750s to one from the 1780s.
And what do they look like? I mean, we've got some in front of us, but
Right.
What are their characteristics?
Well, most of them are going to just be 4 pages, which would be really just a single sheet that can be folded in half. Now, some of the smaller ones might be folded twice, and you'd have an 8-page issue, like that one at the end of it. So but the whole idea is that you would be having a single sheet of paper that you would be able to fold to create one issue.
And so some of these are going to be obviously a little bit larger than others, but they're still
Right.
within a range here of
Yes.
size. Okay. And they have obviously a banner at the top,
Yes.
like we would recognize today. Sometimes people refer to this as the masthead, but it's actually called the banner with the title of the paper.
Yes.
And
You'd have the date. You would often have the volume and the issue number, so that they would see sequentially that they're getting the next issue. And often you would have either like the name of the publisher or the editor, either on the front or sometimes on the back in the colophon at the very bottom, and then the text.
And these banners look. Some of these. I mean, this one here is quite ornate.
Yes.
Is this a block, or how physically did they create these?
Well, the illustrations and like in this particular case, the lettering, this was actually cut by Paul Revere.
Oh.
So this would be a block. Same way with this one, this is a wood block that cut, but then the lettering on a lot of these is just going to be lead type that is set. And then they would just maintain it as they would print issue. Each subsequent issue would come out. They would just leave that standing, so it would always look fairly much the same, because they're going to be putting out the next one with exactly the same look every time.
Right. And so this Revere piece is probably a silver or copper plate that is added to the press.
It's probably a metal plate that has been cut by him and either probably attached to a block. Unfortunately, it doesn't survive, so we don't really know.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you do a metal block, if you do a wood block, the process of printing is still the same.
Right.
And depending on how detailed they get it, sometimes it's very hard to tell what material was used to produce it.
And are there much illustrations in colonial papers? I mean,
very few illustrations. It's expensive. It's difficult to cut blocks, and it takes time. And they're always thinking about their profit margins, I'm sure, because they have to make money to put out the next issue. I mean, like this little initial here, there's probably a metal block that could have been ordered from a type foundry, where they can make multiple ones fairly inexpensive, and then as a metal block that they can use over and over. And since it's just an illustrated frame which they can drop a letter in,
I see.
It doesn't apply to any particular news. It can be
Yeah.
used
Yeah.
as an opening to a paragraph over and over.
I see. So, Vince, I noticed that this one looks a little bit different than the other ones in front of us. What's with this one?
Okay, this one, it's the Massachusetts Sentinel, but in the top here it says extraordinary. And what would happen, newspapers most of the time in this period are weekly. Well, sometimes they would get more news than they could put in a regular 4-page format, or they get some news a little bit later in the week that they really want to get out to their readers, and they don't want them to wait till the next weekly issue. And so they would sometimes do either like an extraordinary, a postscript, or a supplement issue. And in this case, this is a 2-page issue. They're not putting out a full 4-page issue. They're doing enough to get this extra news out to their readers in a timely manner.
Okay.